इंडिया में ना पढ़ाई वढ़ाई सब कर लेते हैं स्कूल में एवरीथिंग इज टॉट इन कॉलेजेस एवरीथिंग इज टॉट डूइंग गुड कम्युनिकेशन मेकिंग श्योर दैट द अदर person understands not just receives but understands your message that's something that's sometimes hit and a miss.
On what can we do? We need to network. That networking
Yeah.
is essential. We've lost that spirit of connection.
Yeah.
And it becomes even more difficult when it's online. I think you have to experience the Tata way to understand truly what a phenomenal company it is.
So if someone's listening to us right now, some leader from some company, whatever scale, small, big, doesn't matter, they want to achieve this and they ask you, how do I achieve this, Sunita? Tell me, how do they achieve this? Leadership consultant Sunita Shetty on the podcast today. Sunita has worked in marketing and business development and now consults organizations and leaders on diversity and inclusion. It's going to be a fun, open-ended conversation today with Sunita. We spoke about communication and how crucial it is across all levels in an organization, the power of networking, how you should nurture relationships in and outside an organization, stories about Tata Group, and what's the difference between work cultures across US, France, Switzerland, UAE, and India. I'm Anirudh, and this channel is all about sharing honest conversations and ideas about work, life, and success. Let's start the episode. I was very curious. You've, of course, done so many things, so many profiles that you've handled. But I think one thing is very common across all work that everyone does is communication. It is so important. And I think it's especially true when someone works in marketing, sales, communication, copcom is so crucial. Somehow I feel इंडिया में ना पढ़ाई वढ़ाई सब कर लेते हैं स्कूल में एवरीथिंग इज टॉट इन कॉलेजेस एवरीथिंग इज टॉट ऑल थियरीज एवरीथिंग इज फैंटास्टिक डूइंग गुड कम्युनिकेशन मेकिंग श्योर दैट द अदर पर्सन understands not just receives but understands your message that's something that's sometimes hit and a miss. Tell me your experience communication and how it's a problem across all levels.
So you're absolutely right in saying that, and I think I've seen that over the years of my working in corporate. Somehow, I've been the person who's taken part in debates, and I've always been very good with English language and with my communication, but when I go into corporate and the years that I've spent in corporate, I've found that has been the biggest problem, really. Seen some really smart people not get their promotions, some really smart bosses not be able to do well with their teams only because of communication. And I find that's such a sad thing, really.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we focus on at all.
Yeah.
One is because everybody has a little fear of the language. Everybody believes that communication is about speaking grammatically correct English and it has to be perfect. That's really not the case. Just like you said, it's about conveying a message and the other person understanding what it is that you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So I really pay very little focus to the language. If you need to improve your language, then that's something you can go ahead and do. And no, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Please, if you want to speak grammatically correct English, please go ahead and do that. And that's a long journey.
Yeah.
Speaking grammatically correct English or any other language doesn't come overnight.
Correct.
It's something that needs to be practiced, and that comes over a long period of time. But the ability to be able to convey an idea, to be able for the other person to understand it, I think is something that people really can work on. It's a human skill that one must focus on. A large part of it, and what it does really to you, is it really builds your confidence. The kind of confidence you will have when you can speak your mind and somebody else can understand what you say, I think is tremendous.
Yeah.
I work a lot with young adults now to be able to get them to just for self-confidence. And I keep telling all parents, this is not about good English. This is about building confidence. And I think if we can do that, if we can work on ourselves, people in corporate, if you can work on yourselves to be able to do that, I think we'll be able to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
Yeah. Sometimes, so many times I've seen, even as you mentioned, the best of the leaders can't express what they really want from their team. And the other way around as well. The team members can't express how they feel, about their work, about the leader themselves. And I feel uh, it's something that should be taught right from school days. Sincerely feel that, communication is something that should be not just taught, but also, people should experience communication. Uh, Somehow I feel a lot many times we just get stuck with the formalities, as you mentioned, like the whole language and the correct use of correct grammatical language. So that's there. But do you see any changes happening over a period of time now? Somehow, like I'll give you my perspective. At this point of time, I feel people just want no nonsense, clear cut, short and sweet communication. Remember, we used to write all those long emails, respected sir and ma'am, hope this email finds you well. No one wants that now. Feel like, hello, is this done? Like, hello, let's catch up at this point of time. It's so weird. But have you seen any other changes? Like you interact with a lot more leaders and people.
I know that it works like that with the younger generation.
Yeah.
You cannot write a long email anymore.
Yeah.
It
I apologize to people. Sorry for the long email that follows, because if I have to give like a long explanation of something, but yeah.
I take great pride in my English, in how I communicate, in how I write, and I take a lot of trouble in writing that.
Yeah.
And I have learned this lesson from my own children.
Huh.
I would, when I had something to tell them, and they left home a long time ago to study, and then of course they've been out of the house. But when I want to tell them something, I would, write out this message, and I would reread it and make sure that it was conveying what I wanted to say.
Right.
And my younger son would send me right back and tell me TLDR. And I didn't know what that meant. And I, sort of had to Google it, and it meant too long, didn't read. So I have learned now to be, it's a challenge. And I think it's good. I have to move with times to
Yeah.
be able to be as succinct as possible.
Yeah.
I still can't get myself to use too many acronyms. Unfortunately, I still, my WhatsApp messages will be complete with full stops and with grammatically correct. But it's important, and I think
Yeah.
if I need to communicate with this younger generation, then I need to play that game.
Yeah.
I don't need to. I need to make it as succinct. I need to make sure that, because that's what communication is about.
Yeah.
It can't be about what I think is right or wrong. I need them to be able to listen to what I say. So how can I do it in the best manner? So I've learned well, and much shorter messages now.
Yeah,
Much
yeah,
shorter.
yeah.
Yes.
Of course. And in general, another thing that I've seen change is relationships at work. I'll tell you what, like, again, just like the long emails have disappeared, uh, you know, work relationships have also somehow faded away. As in, people generally had two friend circles, one at office and one outside. Now I generally don't see people hanging out with work friends. Uh, it somehow, for me, again, I might be very biased because I come from media industry, so that's just exposure to one industry that I have, and people work in different industries, different geographies. So I might be wrong, but somehow I feel thoda sa transactional ho gaya. It's like, you're my work colleague, I'll probably hang out with you once a month when we go for a team outing, but that's it. Like, uh, work friends are slowly disappearing. But I don't know, I mean, is that something that you've noticed? And how do you see people uh, deal with relationships at work?
I've seen a little bit of both.
Hmm.
I think personally, I think I have benefited the most from having some great work relationships.
Huh.
I think I've enjoyed my job. I felt like wanting to go to work. I got my mentorship. I got ideas from people around me. I think I thrived with those relationships at work, which was wonderful. And no matter how much I rose in an organization. I know as you rise higher, it becomes more difficult to have those kind of relationships. Just, it's not easy. But I think I know, got great value from those relationships. And I always encourage people to do that, like find your mentors, find people who you can, because it'll make life so much fun. You spend so much time at work.
8 hours a day.
8 hours a
third of
day.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
don't know. I can't think of how you can treat it as transactional,
Yeah.
and not get more involved.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then work becomes transactional.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know how personally I can. If it works for you, it works for you.
Yeah.
But it's not something that would ever work for me. So
Correct.
it's not about. It's not about having to give up your privacy or anything like that. To me, I think it's important. It's important to create those relationships, to feel that sense of empathy. How do you understand another human being?
Yeah.
These are all life experiences. Forget about what happens at work, right? This is about meeting people, about interaction, about something's going right and something's not going right.
Correct.
But it makes you the person that you are. To enjoy and really thrive in that space. So
I think
so
that's
they're
the
very important.
best feeling. That's the best feeling, having someone with you while you're working. Imagine a soldier saying, "I don't have any work friends." Come on, right? It's a very weird thing if a soldier says it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're literally brothers in arms, right? But somehow again that whole transactional feeling comes through, and even with networking, right? I mean, we were talking about last time we spoke on the phone about how people don't look at networking the way it should be looked at, right? Networking is done with an intent of how can I benefit by getting connected with the other person, and people don't look at creating a relationship with the person, saying that can we create a win-win for each other in long term. Again, is it like a people treat it as if it's a short-term networking event, throw cards at people and then see what sticks. But yeah, nurturing relationships, even women, you're saying that sometimes women struggle with networking. That's a very interesting perspective, and that's the first time I've heard it, but I want to know more about that as well.
It's not sometimes it's a very, very common thing. And I know that I went through it myself. And because you have this impression, and generally that's what it is, right? You have to stay back later, you have to hang around in the bar, you have to have a drink, you have to do this exchange of visiting cards. It has this whole feel of hustling and not being true, and those kind of things that come with this whole networking, and you sort of tend to say that no, this is not me. I can't do this.
Yeah.
That is one aspect of it. Second is, I can tell you that as a mother, it became very difficult for me to do this after hours networking, even if I wanted to.
It's tough.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And I was not the kind of person who was shy. I enjoyed speaking with, people from different, stratas of society, of different people in the organization, male, female, it didn't matter to me. It came quite easily to me. I am that kind of person. So I was never shy of doing that. I was not if you haven't figured it out so far, I'm not an introvert. It comes very easily to me to speak to people and to strike that conversation and to have that relationship and enjoy, a good conversation with somebody. But it just, there were just time limitations. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. And the times I did it, I know it's not that you don't go through enough of guilt. Then you beat yourself up even more that I had to give up time with my kids to be able to do this. And, is it really worth it? And all those kind of questions come into play. But, and now I'm working more and more, especially with women, on what can we do. We need to network. That networking is essential. There is no doubt about it. I think for our own careers, as managers of teams, it's important that we network. It's important that different people in the organizations know what my team is doing. And it's not going to happen by just sitting back and saying that they'll figure it out. We're good enough. If they can't see it, they're stupid.
Yeah.
What can I do? They're crazy that they don't do it. That's not the way it works. I think it's important to be able to showcase talent, to be able to for yourself and for your team. Right?
Yeah.
You want to get the best projects for your team.
Correct.
You know the capability of your team, and you want that to happen. That
Correct.
will only happen through networking.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, how does one do it? And I keep, thinking of how can I do it within my hours of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that just, use your lunch hours well.
Mm.
Use your coffee breaks well. Yeah. I know it's great fun to sit with your group of friends and have lunch, but use that lunch hour to, spend time with people who you need to, who need to know what you are doing, what your team is doing. Build those developmental relationships that are there, your strategic networks that are there. These are all very, very important. I think if you want to do well, and this is not about portraying something that you're not, but
Correct.
it's really about portraying who you are and getting the best for yourself and for your tribe.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's very important, and look to doing it within the hours of work. I think it can be done.
Yeah, I think that's the only place
Yeah.
where, in fact, in new generation, definitely will say the same thing, right? I mean, anything beyond work, I'm not work hours, I'm not gonna do it. But it's easier to do internal networking in this sense. But networking with people outside the organization, it's a little tougher. But does online help, like being on LinkedIn and being, doing workshops and webinars? Does that help?
It does. I think the important thing is to be able to cultivate those relationships then, to
Correct.
be able to find that connect. And I'm
Yeah.
saying we've lost that spirit of connection,
Yeah.
and it becomes even more difficult when it's online.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to make that extra effort to reach out, to understand that person, build that relationship, see
Yeah.
how it can work. It's a little more work really when it's online than when it's physically in the office. I just have to reach out to somebody, have lunch with them. The online ones take a little more,
They
and
do.
it's the reality. But
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
it's what you need to do.
Absolutely. In fact,
Yeah.
I've personally experienced this. So the guests, earlier audio days of podcasting, uh, we used to do online interviews, right? Didn't matter where the other person is. You just get on a call, record the call, and there's your podcast. The connections that I made online were not as strong as the connections I've made like in person when I'm recording the podcast in person, right? It makes a big difference. Big difference. Online, probably 5x amount of effort required to get the conversation rolling again and again, find out points where you can connect again, share resources, ask questions, share ideas. And that's when, a person starts gelling with you. And of course, you don't have to do it with 100 people. It's those few connections that matter, the few relationships that matter, that you want to take long term, take ahead for long term. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
In fact, I heard this women struggling with networking. I heard this literally 2 weeks back from my sister. And she was like, dude, it's tough. And she's a new mother. So she's like, dude, it's tough now, networking. And she's in sales. She's like, I can't network beyond a point now because, commitments take over. But yeah, it's tough. But I think that's something we should keep digging deeper. And I think if you are someone who would like to share ideas on how networking and relationships can be made better, please share a comment, maybe other people, and we can learn from you. Fantastic. Now let's move on to the stuff you've done in the past. And coming from hospitality industry, I come across a lot of people from hospitality industry, and especially people who are associated with Taj. That's something that's very interesting. Uh, One thing I find again very unique about India is the customers and their mentality and their psychology. It's fun dealing with Indian consumers. I think you can deal with the whole world. But hospitality industry, tell me some fun stories. How was it working with Taj?
So my education has been in hospitality. So I passed out of Dadar catering, and I graduated from the catering college in Dadar. And then my first job was the dream job,
Yeah.
right? To work at the Taj in Bombay, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I don't think I could have asked for something better. I think those first few years at the Taj has shaped me to what I am today.
Did you ever meet Mr. Tata?
Uh, I'm so old. The first year that I was there, it was JRD Tata that was still there, and then Mr. Ratan Tata came in. He did come very often to eat but I didn't have a personal interaction with him or ever spoke with him. But he was there, and he had just come new at that time, so he still wasn't. He wasn't the Ratan Tata that we know today.
He was learning the ropes.
Yeah. He had just come in at that time, but the Taj was something else, truly. And I, when I look back at it, I was 21 years old. I just got out of college. I was working in Golden Dragon at their Chinese restaurant. I was really at the bottom of the barrel, just in the management cadre. I was catering assistant. And it was a job I loved. I think working in hotels was something that was so exciting. Very, very difficult hours. We had what was called as break shifts. They aren't there, I believe, anymore, which means that you came in when the restaurant opened, before the restaurant opened at about 11 o'clock. You worked till the last customer left after lunch, which was about 3 o'clock. You came back at 6, and then you worked till 1, or whenever the last customer left.
Wow.
So it was, you were dog tired at the end of it. But coming back to the Taj and what they did for me is they just gave us immense responsibility and the power to do whatever it took to keep the guest happy. I was 21 years old. I didn't know nothing. And they just did that. So, I remember two very, very prominent businessmen who came for lunch once at the Golden Dragon. And there I was, all of 21. And this was in the 80s, late 80s. And one of them had a bottle of wine. They shared a bottle of French wine. The guest loved it. And so the host wanted to present him with a case of that French wine. And the guest wanted it. I knew what I had to do. I just went through all the bars at the Taj in Bombay. I went to the president. I was 21, but I didn't have to ask anybody.
You had the liberty of doing it.
That's the kind of empowerment that they gave you to do what it takes to keep that guest happy. So till today, I sort of, turn my nose up in any company that I worked for, and they speak about customer experience and customer delight. And I keep telling them, you know nothing about this. You have to see what happens in the Taj to know
need to learn from the best.
Yes, to know what it means to do
Awesome.
about customer delight. Yeah.
But
Phenomenal.
Such long working hours. Today, people will talk about burnout. Again, I mean, not judging anyone. It's just, I think the situation, of course, has changed. But such long hours, you guys ever complained about burnout?
I don't think we knew the word at that time.
Same here. Man.
I didn't know the word, and I don't remember being unhappy about it. I just loved my job. I loved what I was doing.
That's it.
I think it was everything. It was about being 21. It was about your first job. It was about earning the first time that you were earning money, your own money. You were working at the Taj. I mean, it couldn't have gotten better. There was no way I was complaining about anything. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
But that's what happens, right? There's so few people that literally find treasure right at the go, right? Because otherwise people always find excuses about life, like this is not right, that is not right, my boss is not good, my colleagues are not good. I mean, of course, problems are always there, but I think, finding something that you enjoy doing, that's what people don't do these days. Maybe. I mean, again, I'm a bit biased because I also got to do what I loved. I got into radio right after quitting my sales job. So, but I think once you find something that you love doing, then work just becomes play, right? I mean, of course, it's a very cliche thing that I'm saying, but it's true actually. And people who have experienced it, they vouch for it, literally. They say, boss, yahi hai.
Absolutely. And I think, it's easy to say it and it sounds terribly cliched. But I think one thing, and I tell a lot of my students when I'm teaching at the MBA school, is to tell them that look for a company that you resonate with. Try and understand what that company stands for. Try and do an internship there. it all falls on deaf ears when you're that age. Then you want to go and join the company that pays you the
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 most.
biggest salary, which
Yeah.
is fine. And tell them that that's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead
Yeah.
and do
Yeah.
that, but then be patient, right? Just give yourself a little time, right?
Yeah.
And understand what the company was about, what is it doing, who are the people that are there. You just need to be a little patient. And in spite of that, if you don't find something and you're not learning and you're not growing, then fine. Go ahead and look outside. But that patience, I feel, is something that the young people miss. And I guess it's part of being young as well. You're
Yeah. Yeah.
you're impatient. You want to do so many things,
Yeah.
and you want it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
yeah,
That's true.
but just a little patience, I think you'll be able to find yourself, what you like. You'll be able to appreciate what the organization is giving you, how you can grow.
Yeah.
Just a little time.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. I, in fact, came across someone. I'll, of course, not name them because I haven't taken permission to talk about them like this, but I've seen someone interacted with someone who joined a company as a management trainee and today runs the business as a CEO across 28 years. I mean, imagine like coming across someone who's worked in the same company for 28 years, joined as an intern, management trainee, first job, and only had one job. Uh, but yeah, I mean, sometimes people don't realize it takes 25 years. In a time where we watch 30-second reels, 25 years feels a lot.
Yeah.
25 years is a lot of time, right? I mean, it's crazy, amazing. But another common thing that I've come across, apart from hospitality uh, people, is people who worked in Tatas. And my God, the amount of passion Tata employees and ex Tata employees have about the company, it's that whole nostalgia feeling that these people carry. And I'm just assuming, including you as well, you love talking about Tata Group. What's so special about Tata Group? Tell me one thing. What's so special that people leave the company, people retire from Tata Group, and they still love talking about Tata Group? What's so special about Tatas?
Best company to ever work for, really. I
Yeah.
think they're tremendous um, in what they have to offer. And just from my own experience, and I'm presuming others have had it as well, which is why they speak so highly about the Tatas. But it's truly a company with a heart. And other companies talk about how they take care of their employees and what they'll do.
Yeah.
But I think you have to experience the Tata way to understand truly what a phenomenal company it is. I mean, even if it isn't the number one company in terms of revenue, in terms of whatever it is, whatever metrics you want to apply, but this is a company with a heart. This is a company that truly keeps people at the center of what it is that they do. And I can only tell you from I've worked there a couple of years, but it's something that just remains with you. It's something that you have to feel. When 2611 happened, there's a Harvard Business case study on it now as to why the employees stayed back, why they chose to give up their lives taking care of the customers when they could have all gotten out. I'm sure at some point, if you know what the old Taj looks like, my God, there are so many nooks and crannies and, little alleyways and, lofts that are there, so many of them, that they could have all protected themselves. The staff could definitely have protected themselves.
Yeah.
And yet they chose to be there. Chef Vijay Rao Banja was my chef at Golden Dragon when I was there when I joined the Taj in 1988. And he was executive chef of Taj Bombay when this happened. And he lost his life in that incident. And, it just doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that the employees chose to put the customers first. It has to do with being a Taj employee. It just has to do with what is instilled in us, So it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I just wish we had more organizations like that. I've worked for many, many other organizations, but what the Tatas do, I don't think anybody else has managed to
Yeah.
replicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the free coffee, it's not the free lunch and fancy office play
Yeah.
zones, right? It's just beyond that. But it's
Yeah.
very, I mean, of course, these perks also might, I mean, are also good to have.
Yeah.
But how do, so if someone's listening to us right now, some leader from some company, whatever scale, small, big, doesn't matter, they want to achieve this and they ask you, how do I achieve this, Sunita? Tell me, how do they achieve this?
I think it's very important to put people first and
Hmm.
build that. And now I know I'm sounding like it very, very corporate and everything else, but that word empathy is really the basis of building those relationships.
Is there
And
an
I,
example that you would like to give? Maybe a story or an incident that could.
you know, I'll tell you from the last I worked for a startup, and that startup eventually got bought over by a very large MNC. So I spent a long time there, and when I was with the startup, it was a question of, I was new. There was very little that I was still very young, but it was a startup. In a startup you do everything that needs to be done, which is also the exciting part of it. And I remember the first time I had to go and make a presentation in New York on the product. I thought, my God, I'm not going to go and stand in a marketing conference in New York and speak. Suppose somebody asks me something, I'm not a technical person. How will I be able to answer? And it took one leader, it took my CEO to say, I know you can do this, right? Come on, we'll work on this together. And of course, you can do it. And he sat, worked with me, and, said, off you go. And just that, the faith that you put in somebody else, the amount of time he spent in building that relationship, in investing in that. It's not that he hired somebody and he didn't turn around and tell me, listen, I hired you for this. You should be, what am I paying you this money for? You should be able to do this. So this is what is expected of you. He was there, right? When you know somebody's got your back, I think you can climb mountains with that. So the ability to be able to do that as a leader, and I feel we don't have the time, we don't have the inclination. Very often we just we think we can hire for that, and I don't think you can hire for that. I think it's a lot for a leader to be able to build that kind of team, and I think you need to spend time on that
Yeah.
relationship.
I think it's just about trust, right? And it's a two-way street. It's not just like a leader trusting the team. The team also needs to trust the leader, right? And even not just the leader, I mean, even each other. Uh, Thankfully, I think I had the sense of putting blind faith in my managers, saying if you're doing it, you probably have seen more situations than me, you have more experience. If you're saying it, this works, this works, okay, I'll jump, right? And if it doesn't work, that's okay. I mean, ultimately, when we are sharing the responsibility, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a failure.
Yeah, it's a leap on faith leap of faith on both sides.
Correct.
I have to say, okay, this is a good person, and I'm gonna
Correct.
I'm gonna hold on to this one, and
Yeah.
let's go on this journey together. And it's for the leader also to say that, come on, I'm gonna take this person to the best that they can achieve.
Yeah.
That's my job, to be able to do that. And I think if that works, magic can be created.
Yeah. I think people end up saying, you trust me instead of saying, I trust you. That's where the problem is, right?
Yeah.
People are expecting
Correct.
for the other person to come on board
Yeah.
on your island, but it should be the other way around.
It's really both ways.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
True.
Fantastic. And now, overall, I've noticed that you've transitioned a lot across different fields, and I'm sure it has its own merit, as in, like, exploring different geographies is always fun. And of course, we'll literally talk about geographies in a bit. But Tell me, how did the transition happen? What was your thought process on changing your fields? And now, of course, you're consulting leaders and companies about inclusivity and diversity, and starting from Taj, right? I mean, that's a interesting career graph. So tell me your thought process and why you transitioned into different roles.
And I wish there was a thought process. I'm always, when I meet young women nowadays, I keep telling them about how they should plan their career and what they should do. But that's not what happened with me. Mine was happy coincidence, one after another, and it just all worked out well, fortunately for
Super.
me. So I spent my years in my initial years in hospitality. I worked at the Taj. I went on to doing my masters in Paris. Worked for the International Hotel and Restaurant Association. So my education and my vocation were going hand in hand and aligned at that point. And then I'll share with you my sad joke, which I share with everybody. I have a master's degree in hospitality, and then I married the only Shetty in Pune who does not run an ODP restaurant. So, we could have been making millions selling idli dosa, but both husband and wife ended up doing some mumbo jumbo, somewhere in IT doing something or the other. So once when I came back from France after I got married, was when my husband decided to start a software company. This was in 1995, 94, 95. And, we got an assignment in the United States. We went there to sign the contract. I went along because I still hadn't got a job in India. I'd just gotten married. And I decided, let's make this an extended honeymoon. We went off to the US and we ended up staying there for a year and completing the project there. So I was on a visa that didn't allow me to work in the United States. I was there for a year. I spent the first month going and meeting every friend in every part of the United States. And then what was I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So I just ended up helping out as much as I could. So I made the fastest transition from being from serving coffee to everybody in the office, to giving them weekly allowance, to ultimately testing the product. So I became the QA person in the company. That was all that I could do at that point in time. And then when we came back, we sort of, I looked at what it is I could do. So I said, I think HR would be a good, just because of my skills in hospitality, working with people. So I sort of moved into HR in that organization. So did that. I know it was my husband's company, but I think it was, we built something special. We really did. We had a reunion of that company, which is, since it was, it got bought over and everything, it doesn't exist anymore. But that group of people still met just yesterday.
Oh, nice.
With such, lovely memories. I mean, we still meet and we still talk about what magic we created in those years in the 90s. So we really did something special there. And then after my second baby, I was ready to go back to work. And then I thought I should look and see if somebody else will give me a job, not just my husband. And somebody else did, but my mom was running an ad agency at that time, and it was going through some troubled times. So I thought, good place to go. I can walk in, walk out when I want to, and yet, I'm doing this good thing of helping my mom. Yeah. But within a month of my going there, she stopped coming to work. So I ran the agency for a while. Nice. And then we sold it because we did another stint in France. My husband went off to do his MBA there. And we did this very wise thing of going on one-person scholarship. Husband, wife, and 2 children went along.
Super.
We were in debt for a long, long time, but it was a wonderful experience. Yeah. And then when I came back, I was doing advertising for the startup, for a startup. And, the CEO at that time told me, come and just join me. What are you doing? He sort of saw something in me and thought that I could help him. So I joined that startup, and it was an absolutely phenomenal time that we had. And like I said, I think it had a lot to do with his belief in me. I don't think I had that kind of self-belief that I could do something in IT which I didn't know, I didn't know so much about in terms of sales and business development and those kind of things. But he just put so much of faith in me. So it was tremendous. and I must say this, and I'm glad it's going on record here, that we were part of the Gartner quadrant in the space. So we had a marketing operations management product. We were in the Gartner quadrant, and we eventually made it to the leadership quadrant. We were among the top 3 in the world, Anirudh.
Wow.
I have a story to tell my grandchildren.
Lovely.
It was amazing, really, for a small company out of Koregaon Park, Pune. It's phenomenal what we achieved. And of course, like all good things, when we got into the leadership quadrant, it became, the spotlight came on that product, and all 3 companies got acquired by 3 different companies. We got acquired by a large multinational. We got acquired by SAS, and then I spent time there. I was also fortunate in SAS, where people looked at me, and I was part of the SAS R&D center here in Pune. So they were a fully, technical team that was there.
Wow.
And there was me coming in with product management and customer education and pre-sales and all kinds of things, bringing all my teams along there and saying, what are we doing in an R&D center? But it was, it really speaks a lot about them to absorb us, make sure that we integrated very well, and to allow me to grow. I mean, I eventually became part of leadership, worked with the teams that were there, became, as part of leadership. It was also culture building, setting processes that were there, with things that I enjoyed tremendously. So I've been fortunate in that way. Nothing was planned, Anirudh, nothing. It just fell into place.
Yeah. That's amazing. In fact, not that I've changed industries, but yeah, I mean, even my jobs have just fell into the place because I was just connected to the right person at the right time, and I was in touch with them. That's it, right? Amazing. But you explaining this to a recruitment manager today, I don't think they'll be very convinced.
I don't think I'd get a job.
Yeah, exactly.
If I went in with a degree in hospitality, and I keep telling HR people that, I said, please look at what this means. Sometimes we get stuck on this, what is this person's qualification,
Titles,
and which school did they come from. I said, I'd like to believe that I brought great value to an organization just with the skills that I had, just because I had such diverse skills that I could, really bring to the table to add so much value.
Yeah.
It didn't matter that I was from hospitality or I'd worked in hotels or done anything, done so many different things. I think it added value.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell a lot of young people as well, is that do different things.
Yeah.
I think the experience, and it's not just at work. I think outside of work also, experiment with different things. You learn so many things from, anything that you do.
Yeah.
We recently took up salsa dancing for the last 3-4 years, where my husband and I are still terrible at it. The moment it's our age, the moment the teacher leaves the room, we've forgotten the steps. But I've learned how wonderful it is in that 1 hour when you are dancing. That you have to stay focused. You cannot think of something else. You cannot think of, I have to send that email, or, what are the children doing, or what is... It's such a phenomenal, wonderful way of remaining focused for that 1 hour.
Absolutely.
It doesn't come when I'm doing fitness.
Yeah.
I'm doing all kinds of things in fitness, and I know I'm thinking about what else do I have to do today, something else here, something else there. But dancing, just 100%. If you're not focused, you can't dance. So you learn so many things, really.
Amazing.
So it's good to be able to do other things as well. There's lots of learnings from those.
Absolutely. And it's somehow, I feel, it's celebrated outside, at least outside India. In India, it seems like a problem. You've dabbled into too many things. So it means that you haven't found your groove, right? Somehow it's mistaken in that sense. And even if someone hasn't found their groove, it's absolutely fine, right? I mean, they're still exploring, and that's a great thing. Exploring, what's best.
Yeah.
Why should it be a taboo, right?
Yeah.
But that's there. And another interesting thing is, you're talking about salsa. I experience the same thing every day when I'm playing badminton, right? I mean, so on the court, you can't even think of other stuff. It's just you get into that zone. It's just a sweet spot. Like you can't think of anything else. And I used to, in fact, I was very lucky that a good decade and a half that I've spent of my career being a radio jock. And in those 4 hours of that show, I couldn't think of anything else. It was music. It was like talking to people and उस टाइम पे WhatsApp नहीं था. There was SMSs used to come in. So we used to read SMSs and call people. But yeah, so it was an absolute zone. Like you couldn't think of anything else. What's going in life? What's going to happen? Nothing. You're in that zone. And in fact, you like it was not even a social thing, right? I mean, a jock,
Yeah.
like a radio jock, sits alone in a station, right? You're alone in that room,
Yeah.
and it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I know the feeling, right? I mean, it's amazing. But talking about exploration, and since you talked about different things that you've tried, tell me the difference that you see in India and all these other cultures, work cultures in US and France and Europe. Tell UAE as well, right? I mean, I'm sure
Yes.
you've spent some time in UAE
Yes.
as well. So
Yes.
tell me the difference that you've seen in work cultures across these places.
Wow, we can do a whole podcast on that one.
Sure. So next one, next one's gonna be at this one. No, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? How people look at work and life in other countries. It's
How
crazy.
people look at work and life is really amazing. I know people make fun of the French a lot about their long
Mm,
lunches and their shortened work week and things like that. But you know what? They have done phenomenally well like that.
yeah.
And I have a soft spot. I'm a full Francophile. I love them, and I have begun to see great value in that.
Yeah.
The ability to go and have lunch and focus on lunch. They don't talk business.
Yeah.
There's no talking about business. You talk about business after lunch. And in a way, it resonated with me a lot. It's what my grandmother would have said, when we're eating, enjoy your food.
Yeah.
Right?
So
There's no, talking about something sad that happened or anything like that. Enjoy the meal. Enjoy what has been prepared. And I think the French in that way are, I learned to appreciate that so much, that there's a time for business, there's a time for, and those are times when you create those relationships, when you're
yeah.
having lunch, when you talk about other things, when you're making those connects, as human beings about other things that are there. And yeah, 35-hour work week, that's what it is. They
It's
have a
crazy, right?
great, they believe in that tremendously. They're a country that does that, by law you cannot send work emails beyond work hours, which is phenomenal. Well
Absolutely.
done. So it's, so that's one kind of culture
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
of course also the United States, which I have enjoyed, seeing how professional they are, how quickly they're able to get things done. There's no this beating around the
Yeah.
bush.
Yeah.
I
Straight to
mean,
the
Indians
business.
are, our whole conversations are about, we never say no, I can't do this,
Yeah.
right? Always, yeah, everything is yes, we can do. And I know our managers in the United States used to, he would always call me and say, can it be done or can't it be done? And I would be the one telling, no, it can't be done. But in the meeting, it'll be about, yes, yes, of course, but how are you going to do it? We all know it's not going to get done, but we can't say no.
Yeah.
And then we do all this, layering and covering, and nothing is said like the way it is,
Yeah.
which I sort of enjoy about the US that was there. The UAE was a very, very short stint. I was in Dubai. Within 6 months, the first Gulf War broke out. Some
Oh,
of you all may not have been born,
bond little.
but the first Gulf
Half
War,
of
there
my
was
audience.
there was a yeah, there was a first Gulf War that happened. So there was no work to be done,
You came back.
because the war was on. But it was interesting to see how different it was in that sense
Yeah.
of Indians working in the Gulf.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot. I think there's a lot more appreciation
Yeah.
for our talent
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Big time.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time.
Yeah, it gave me an opportunity to see a different part of the world.
But I've noticed something very interesting about uh, online meetings with Americans, straight to the business. I've seen 3-minute meetings happen. Like, of course, half an hour is scheduled for it, but the meeting ends in 3 minutes. And I was like, done? That's it? Yes, done. And versus, I, of course, have spent a lot of time in Gulf. So I know that the first half an hour is exchanging pleasantries, having a cup of kawa. How's everything? How's your business? How's your family? which is the new car that you bought, and what's the latest in like tech and what's happening. So it's a lot more. It's very relationship focused versus Americans are like straight to business, talk shop, done, thank you, and yeah, that's it, right? So it's fun. I mean, and but the fun thing is like business in, at least with my experience, business in Gulf works only on relationships, right? Versus US and Europe, I think it's a very straightforward, follow the protocol and that's it.
There's a
Very
good and
different.
bad for
Yeah,
both,
yeah, yeah.
like
Of course, of
everything in
course.
life.
And it's fun
you
both
know,
ways. I mean,
yeah,
and I've enjoyed both. Like, it's fun. But I think us Indians can learn a lot from different cultures, and I think that's what we need to do. Of course, now we have a lot more exposure, because, especially because of
Yeah.
IT companies and people who deal with foreign clients. They are more exposed to how other cultures function. But yeah, I think we need to take the best of the world and inculcate that in our culture. We have, of course, offered a lot from India in terms of life and learnings about life off work. But I think in terms of work, I think we can learn a lot from others. Yeah, this was amazing. Fantastic conversation. And we're going to do a whole special about working with other cultures. But yeah, that's for some other time. But thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Not at all, Anirudh. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this.